Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Terminal Vocation. I'm your host, Deacon Mark.
And this is Erin.
And we're excited that you're back for this conversation with us. Today we're going to be concluding our two-part mini-series. Last time we talked about pre-partum issues, and that ended, and now we're going to be talking about postpartum issues.
Yay.
Because every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
If people don't know that song and you don't know the meaning, look up why he wrote it. It's kind of a cool...
Semisonic.
Thank you. I couldn't think of who it was, of course. Closing time. It's about babies.
It is. Yeah, it's about the birth of their first
awesome
child. It's a great song. But yeah, so we finished up on pre-partum. We're going to talk about coming home.
Cool.
Bringing that kid home. But first, let's just talk about our week. How'd your week go? We've got what's going on this week?
I felt like our week was soccer. Like, I know other things happened. Like, I did a lovely hike with our son today, and other things did happen. Mm-hmm. But I felt like any time when you were upstairs and I came in, there was a soccer game on, which was awesome.
I feel very called out, but
no, I mean, there's lots of games to watch. We did brackets.
We did do brackets, so we were actually going to jump in. So we're going to talk about, as our this just in topic, we're going to talk about the knockout rounds a little bit.
My goodness.
So we did a bracket, right? So we love March Madness, and so we've made our March Madness style bracket. I mean, these were, there were printable brackets available online. It was too much to go through who we thought was going to come out of each group stage and all that.
Yeah, you were disappointed because when it started, you had looked up the bracket thing, and it was Excel spreadsheets with pivot tables and things.
There was a website where you could basically say who you thought was going to win, like be the first place in each group and second place, but then...
That was too much. One piece of paper is all I can handle, and I can barely do that.
Yeah. When it asked you to start guessing the goal differential that the third place team was going to have, I said, nope.
So we waited. You were very patient.
So we waited. But now that they're in the round of 32, it's pretty set. Like, we know what the potential matchups will be. And so just as a little bit of a backstory, and then we'll get into our picks. We love the brackets, right? And we know at this point there's been a couple upsets already.
Yes.
Upsets are awesome. But
they are.
But from a family perspective, why do we think this is relevant?
Well, I got to say, God love your friend Harv, because when I was married to you, maybe when we were engaged, I was allowed to play in Harv's NCAA tournament bracket challenge. I don't have the name right. Sorry, Harv. But I started this, and I'm not a huge sports person. I usually come in at the end, and I like the last game of any series. But I kind of got into this, and so ever since we were married, have been doing the March Madness brackets. Yeah. And I feel like you taught the kids how to do it with varying levels of... I don't think we've been successful.
No. Not only do you not think so, but there's...
evidence.
Concrete evidence to the contrary.
Harv could tell us. Yeah.
But, so he started this, I think our freshman year of college. He might have even done it in high school before I knew him. But one of the great things that's so family friendly about it is, one, it's never changed $2 to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's always just been $2. And then as we got older, once we got married, spouses, welcome in.
Love it.
Once we had kids, as soon as the kids are old enough to say, go Dukes, because we all went to JMU, so the kid had to leave Harv, had to call Harv or leave Harv a voicemail saying, go Dukes. And that was his evidence that, okay, these picks might actually be from the child as opposed to dad getting a second entry.
Sure.
So it became a family thing, and then we would all sit around. Now, our kids have never been huge sports fans. Some of them are getting more into it as we've gotten older. But it meant that everybody would kind of sit for a little bit, ask who's winning. But gosh, the opportunity when you say, who do you think is going to win? University of Michigan or Butler?
Oh my gosh.
Butler.
The butt jokes. And one of our children picked Butler to win.
To win the whole thing.
The whole thing just because it had the word butt in it. So there were many. Yeah, anything that was kind of a good joke, or at some point, I think some people got into the mascots. So it's based nothing on skills.
Yeah, yeah.
And I shouldn't say. I mean, we've never won. I think we've placed.
Harv's consolation prize.
I was going to say,
whoever comes in dead last gets free entry into next year's pool.
So we've done that.
That's family friendly.
That is a free entry is good. So yeah.
But I say all that so the brackets thing is kind of fun, but and I'll say this maybe especially to dads, though certainly they're not the only ones who do this, but sports can become an all-consuming thing, and as you've said yourself, like for the past couple weeks, gosh, that's a lot of soccer. But a couple things that are fun about it, right, is it is real reality television.
Yes.
Like, this is drama that's actually playing out, that's taking place. Like all the drama that happens because the producers recorded something. Somebody was saying like, no, this is like actually like this person got this penalty and now there's this upset brewing. Like it's drama and it's fun to watch.
Joy of victory, agony of defeat.
Agony of defeat, right?
Yep.
So I think there's a lot to be learned from excellence, perfection,
good sportsmanship, or bad,
right? Mm-hmm. All those things I think are really good lessons.
Yeah.
From watching sports, sitting and watching it together, moderating.
Yes.
How much you're watching? Like we were talking earlier, and I had one of the games on earlier today, and it got to be like 2-0, and I was like, I don't think this result is in question anymore. I'm going to turn this off because I might want to watch a game that's better later on.
Yep. So, you're trying to pace yourself.
Let the TV rest.
That's fair.
She's working hard.
That's fair.
But I think just if there's something that you're passionate about, finding ways to incorporate the family into it so it's not something you're doing solo is often a good thing to try and find those ties. Just like I'm a Bears fan. My own daughter became a Packers fan because another friend of hers spent more time with her explaining the game.
Ultimate act of teenage rebellion.
No, I feel like if she had sat down next to me and asked, I would have explained as much as she wanted to. But, that's my own little cross to bear.
It is. It is.
So let's talk about our brackets real quick. So let's talk about, two important questions that I think everybody wants to know. Number one, how far you got Team USA going?
Okay, so I have Team USA. Gosh, I'm going to say this wrong. So it's match. Oh gosh, it's in the third column. What's that going to be?
Match 8, I think.
Yeah.
Or no, 98.
98. Yep, 98. And then I have them losing to Spain.
Yeah, I've got the same.
We did have a lot of similar, but we didn't do it together. Yes.
So we both got them beating Belgium.
Yep.
Which is not going to be an easy game.
No.
But kind of figuring on home turf, they got a chance. But Spain's a juggernaut, so we both think that's going to be a tough out. All right. So who's your final four?
Okay, so in order from 4.
Sure.
4 I'm saying is Argentina. 3 is Spain. 2 is France, and 1 England, baby.
All right.
That's who I think.
All right.
What are you doing?
We got similar. I've got so I have Spain and Norway in the third place game, and I've got Norway winning. So it would be a little bit of an upset. They've got a great player named Haaland. Now, as soon as I made this pick, I was like watching a game, and he seems to be apparently someone who has a problem being kind of apathetic unless he's getting the ball enough and getting enough touches.
Oh, no.
So I'm very nervous about this pick.
Yeah.
And then in the final, I've got France winning over Argentina.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting. So that's our pick. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see who's right.
Picks bound to go wrong.
But like you said, I think with Harv's bracket, I always wanted to win so badly, which was never to be achieved. So I was always very disappointed with upsets that didn't go my way. But this time, what was the upset that we were watching the other night? And I was so excited because the people were so happy.
Yeah. When Paraguay beat Germany in the shootout.
Oh my gosh. I kind of understand why an upset is great, even if it destroys your bracket, which it didn't affect me too badly. But yeah, I felt like I finally got that.
Well, let's jump into our topic. Let's talk about that moment where you're in the hospital and they're going to let you bring them home.
I think what's awesome about this, I'm excited to talk about this topic, but you know why I'm really excited to talk about it is because it was a suggestion from a listener to, I'm going to say a couple, but I think it really came from our friend Grace.
Yeah.
And then her husband Chris had some ideas. So we Grace suggested the topic, and then we sort of picked their brain to get some of their challenges and solutions. So those will be mixed in as we talk about it. So that's like our first
Grace,
input.
Thanks for the idea. Yeah, because it's a great topic, and
it is.
It's real. I mean, it's the start of the family. It's the start of parenthood, right? So thanks for mentioning that. So let's start just before the actual coming home.
Okay.
Right. So baby's delivered. Dad cuts the cord. Everybody's good. And then they wheel you down the hall to this other unit, right? So you leave labor and delivery and you're in the postpartum unit. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things we've always commented on is all of a sudden, like the urgency around mom's needs have just gone from like 11, Spinal Tap 11, down to about a -3. Like, because all the postpartum nurses kind of know, like, this just happens every day and we see it and nothing is new under the sun. And so they're just a little bit more chill about everything.
And I think some of it too, it's difficult, it's challenging figuring out new babies and what to do with them. And I think they also just kind of know that you need to kind of just struggle through some of that. Like some
of it, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So it was definitely not as mom focused.
And so a couple things, from that. One is parents, we could take a little lesson from that and say, okay, maybe we can start to increase our own chill. Mm-hmm. But there's also something to like, it's time to start learning how to start advocating for your kids and pointing things out and asking questions and saying, that doesn't seem right. Or
I'm confused.
And so, always finding a way to, yes, be charitable. Yes, be kind. But it's okay sometimes to go to the nurse's station and say, like, hello,
I need
waiting
help
on something.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think of was there was a very kind nurse who came in, but she had somebody else's badge. It was not her on the badge. And at the time that we were in there had been something of like 2 babies stolen from wards in hospitals. So just like I needed one more thing to worry about. And so they were telling you, like, check their badges. And the badge wasn't right. And I can remember telling you, but I just physically was kind of just sapped. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't fight that fight. And not, I shouldn't put it in those terms, and I just felt like, Mark, you've got to handle this. Like, I don't know what to do. Her badge doesn't match. And you nicely were like, hey, what's the situation? And she had forgotten her badge. She'd borrowed it from a friend to be able to get on the ward or something. And anyway, went through the procedure then of getting a substitute badge. And it was all copacetic. It was all fine, but it didn't match. And it was nerve-wracking for a little bit there for me.
It didn't. You were reminding me of this story, but I think she hadn't gone through the process. She had borrowed one from somebody.
Correct. I'm sorry, I didn't say that well. She had borrowed one, and that was what we noticed was weird.
Right.
When you talked to her about it, she said, "Yes, I borrowed this from my friend to get in here." And you were like, "Well, in my work, when that happens, you have to get a substitute badge." And so then she was like, correct. I think a supervisor came in and vouched for her, but then sent her to go through the correct procedure. I think she came in late on the shift. So I sort of shorthanded that. But so it was fine, but also good that you said something. Yeah,
I mean, antenna up is a good thing. We don't need to steel ourselves for a fight, but being aware of what's going on, is a good thing, right? And the other thing is that you're not going to spend a lot of time here because with insurance, what it is, they want you out.
They do.
Right? And so, especially probably if you have a natural delivery, it's like, okay, you ready to go home?
Yeah, certainly the recovery was easiest with that. And I say, I make this moan like we shouldn't stay there longer. In some ways, it is really good to get back to your home and to get out of a germy hospital and things. But sometimes you just do need the help too. Like recovering from the twins' birth with the C-section,
Yeah.
I felt like I could have been there a little longer.
And I think especially with probably the first one, I think there's, more questions. And it provided the opportunity to have like a lactation consultant
Yes.
come in and work on things because as as physiologically natural as that is, it's for some reason very difficult to make work.
Oh, and with each kid is so different.
Yeah.
So you're sort of learning I always said it was like learning a new dance partner, and not always so. It's hard until it's easy. Then you figure it out and you're like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
But for me, anyway, it did not come easily, especially with the first one.
Yeah. So
we figured it out.
Taking advantage of, those resources that are available to you, and being ready for that. And then, they're going to let you leave with a newborn human. So crazy. I think we talked about that before. So we get home and we're at home for the first day, right? You walk into your house and you close the door and there's a little bit of a magic kind of moment. At least for me, maybe more so. I don't remember. This was like my family is in my house. Like there's a, kind of a neat element to that. That lasts for moments until you're like, now what do we do?
Right.
So I think one of the first things is kind of like we talked about with the birth. Make a little bit of a plan. What are we doing on day one when we get home? How are we going to handle sleeping, feedings, changes? Who's in charge of what based on what time of day?
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily a right and a wrong here, except one of the things I think, Grace and Chris had mentioned, like, we learned quickly that every time the baby needs something, it doesn't mean they need something from both of us.
Mm-hmm. That I think trying to find those times, and specifically I think they were talking about sleep, like you need to figure something out where everybody has some chance to sleep some amount.
Yeah.
Obviously, a nursing mom, especially if the baby doesn't take the bottle at that point, the lion's share is going to fall to you. But are there times when the baby will take a bottle that the dad can feed the baby right in the morning? Is you can get another hour of rest or something. Having some kind of plan for that. And I know for us, I can remember, I was again kind of this nervous parent, and I would get worried that something was wrong, and in the middle of the night. It was always in the middle of the night when you were sleeping to get ready to go. You were going to go to work the next day. And I just felt this need, like, I'm worried. So I would go wake you up and tell you about my fear, which oftentimes was just me worrying, and it wasn't an emergency. And I think at some point somebody said to me, he needs to sleep unless things are going to heck in a handbasket. Like, he's going into work and, obviously kids are sick or whatever, you need to get him up. But 9 times out of 10, you need to let him be and get yourself, she didn't say under control, but I did need to calm down a little bit and realize that most times the baby will let you know if something's wrong.
Yeah. Well, and this part of the plan gets a little bit into the, hey, who's home? Who's not,
Yes.
Who's going back to work, who's not. So let me talk real quick about paternity leave, because paternity leave didn't exist.
Yeah.
Or at least it certainly wasn't widespread, and it certainly wasn't available
when we
in any
had
places
kids
that I worked. So I was left to whatever vacation I had accumulated. We were fortunate with some family would come in, and so I took off, I think, the immediate day or two. Right after, around, the day of the birth and a day or two after. And then we had family come in. And so since there was someone with you, I thought there's no need for me to burn my vacation while there's already someone here helping you. So then once they left, we had a couple weeks that were sort of behind us, if you will. And so then I took off, I think every Friday, because I had another week's worth of leave. So for the next month and a half, I took every Friday off, so I was working, but it was always a short week.
Yes, 4-day weeks, and then the Friday you'd be home, which was nice. Yeah, and that worked for us. Whatever plan works, but that one worked for us.
So depending on what paternity leave might look like for some of the guys out there, I know maternity leave is certainly a little bit more universal. But if your paternity leave allows for it to be put off, for a couple weeks. And if you've got, people who are coming in to help mom with the immediate, week or two after, delay that, maximize, how you can use that, but don't have two people at home with mom. Have somebody with her for more time.
Sure.
Instead of two people double dipping at the
same
time. And so we talked about having people come in, and this is a rule. I don't remember. I'd love to credit whoever had this rule when we were having kids. But someone said, no one comes over unless they're there to work. And this is for especially those first couple weeks, right? Like if anybody's coming over, they're bringing you a meal, they're doing laundry, they're making beds, they're vacuuming. They're coming to help. They're not just coming because I want to see the baby.
And putting you in a position of having to entertain, having to get dressed up. And again, some people might want to get dressed up and they might want to entertain, but it really should, we found what worked best for us was that time of just taking the help and being able to receive the help that was offered, because sometimes that's challenging as well. But yeah, I mean, our friends and family were so invaluable then of just tossing a load of laundry and taking the kids to the playground, bringing a meal. Meals were wonderful.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's a good rule. So talk a little bit about that first day night. We're going to talk about this next section. I called it sort of surviving Q1. If you can kind of figure out the first, 90 days, the first 3 months, then I think you establish some routines that will help. And so things will stabilize a little bit. One of the things that I'm going to just sort of jump in on our outline here for a second, but we started to talk about sleep. And one of the things that we had a disagreement about a little bit at first was where baby slept.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so we nursed all the kids.
I did.
I did.
You didn't help much with that.
None of it. Yeah, I'm going to go back and edit that out. So what that meant was that sometimes I would walk down the hall. We would hear the baby crying. I would walk down the hall and bring them to you. Now, my role was I always wanted baby to have baby's room. I did not want baby in my bed.
Yep.
I didn't even want baby in my room.
It's true.
Right. So I didn't want, the bassinet or anything that was next to it. I felt like the best thing we can do for us as a family is to be very clear about this is mom and dad's space and that's the child's space. And so we talked about that, and I don't think we were in really disagreement about it. It's just I think, more strident about it.
Yeah, I think you really committed to that much more than I. Plus, I was just beat. I was just tired a lot of the time. So it certainly was more convenient to nurse there. And then I loved it when I could nurse and you take the baby back. But, I'd fall asleep. But especially when they were little. Again, that's what worked for us. I know there's plenty of people that do the co-sleeping and all that stuff, but this was what worked for us. But I think having you stick to your guns, because again, I would just be too exhausted to get up at some times, especially with the first one.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And it, I think where it made a difference was later on when we were trying to get them to sleep on their own,
especially in a bed. That was easier. That was a big deal. Transition.
So I think that it made that much easier. Okay, so let's talk about postpartum depression. Like, how do we know when, emotions are all over the place. So when is it just, hey, this is a hard thing to do and we're emotional, and when is it something more tricky?
Well, and I think it is, we talked often after the babies were born, just about the baby blues. And I say blues, but more what I felt like was kind of this roller coaster of emotions. But I would say they were within a manageable framework. I mean, I never had postpartum depression. I certainly had anxiety and stress about things. But if you Google that, if you look at what some of the symptoms are, that's going to be a long period of time of feeling blue and sad. It doesn't end. You're maybe lackluster. You're not interested in bonding with the baby. That's probably, one of the most telling signs, I think.
Visible for dad to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's something that a dad could definitely see. Because sometimes, women, I think we just, put our nose to the grindstone and we go, and we're willing to do the work and try and not trouble other people. But this, anytime you're having thoughts of self-harm or, issues, obviously you should be seeking help. But this in particular is not the time to be a hero. Like, ask for the help that you need. Whether it's just, gosh, I'm just feeling kind of blue today, feeling kind of emotional, whatever, that's fine. Or, gosh, something else is going on. This has lasted a long time. I think one of the things that I think is odd that they always reminded us in the hospital was that postpartum can happen well after the baby's been here. So you could have first, couple weeks, month, whatever, and things seem fine, normal recovery, and then it could hit. So I think not being surprised if it maybe happens later, but definitely paying serious attention to that, as well as the emotions.
Well, and, a couple of things that could delay that, and, one of them, sort of the next thing we want to talk about is maternity leave is over, and is mom going to go back to work? Is she going to stay home, or is, maybe in some instances dad's staying home? But let's talk about mom going back to work or not. That's a decision that kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Like, if you're going to stay home, then there's a little bit of a grieving over the loss of your work life, of your work income, and kind of that independent sense of, I'm a professional person. So there's a depression, a grieving that can come from that. Or if you are going back to work, there's this, I'm putting my baby in someone else's hands every day, and am I being selfish? And so I think they can kind of cut both ways.
Your sister always said, yeah, and she and I both stayed home with the kids, and she'd say, yeah, I'd go to work and people would listen to me there on the first time, sort of mourning the loss of that job, and just the adultness of it. And it's wonderful to have time with your kids, but sort of that lack of adult conversation, is difficult. If you've been used to working in a fast-paced office, you're running on somebody else's schedule who's demanding and doesn't have a vocabulary to tell you what's going on. It's difficult.
Yeah. I think our only comment on this is, we've got, different things work for different people in terms of, some people need a 2-income family, and, that's a reality. For us, you staying home worked for us, and it's a good solution for us. Don't let people talk you in or out of something that's not right for you.
Yes.
But kind of no matter what you choose, your child should be a priority. Right? So even if you're going to work, and this is true, like even if it's, even if mom's staying home and dad's going to work, dad, you're only working in order to provide for that family. And so if that work is starting to demand things that are unreasonable, that you're not able to be home with that family, or love that family, or be with that family, then you need to look at that reality too.
One thing that goes along with what we've talked about is you set up these plans, the birth plan, the sleeping plan, the work plan, and you try them for a while, and then something changes or no longer works, and you have to change it. It's like anything, but at least you have kind of that track that you're running on, and you can say, oh, this job's really not working for me anymore, or staying home's not working for the mom anymore, vice versa, whatever it is. But yeah, starting with something, and then you can always change from there.
So the other thing that going to work does, both for moms and dads, is then you come home and you have to transition into parent mode, right? And so it's a second job. And I remember for us, because you stayed home, it's kind of like your job was 16-hour days or 24-hour days, whereas it seemed like, okay, I'm coming home, he hasn't been doing this, now it's his turn. The reality was, well, I had been working, and now I'm having to sort of mentally shift gears and change into a different job. Both are hard in their own way, right? Whether it's a longer job or changing gears. So a couple of strategies for that, I think, is, if you're driving home, if you're commuting, using that time as a way to kind of mentally prepare to change gears, having some sort of routine in the car that kind of gets you into parent mode. If you're a work from home type and you've got a, office somewhere in the house, then having some ritual or routine associated with turning off the work computer. It's a great time, in my opinion, you're making that transition. I'm someone who does Liturgy of the Hours. It's a great time to say, hey, I'm going to do evening prayer. And that's kind of my transition time into parenting. So if, whether one parent is working or both parents are working, having those ways to make that transition into parent time. All right. Hopefully everyone's still with us and didn't rush off to answer their phone. That was on our end. The phone in the studio, I'm sure it's probably our producer calling with the next, our agent calling about the next big deal.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, I think that kind of takes it with, the work routine.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I felt like by our second child, we got down to a good routine where you would come home, we'd all have dinner together, and then you would take the kids up for bath time and stories. And so I can just remember at times being like...
Which before that, if I can interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, but I think a lot of times then I would come in and you would still be kind of finishing getting dinner together.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That's
it was
true.
like kind of like dad time,
Wrestle.
And that kind of worked this. They kind of wanted to
Wrestle
see me.
time.
I've been gone all day.
Yes.
Right? So, I think if we're still in Q1 here, I don't think there was quite as much wrestling in the first 90 days.
Probably true.
Come later.
Yeah.
But especially like our oldest, he was really colicky. Like I would come home and it would just be, okay, grab him and just bounce and walk around.
Yes. Yeah, I did forget that.
So,
yeah, I think, again, later children, then we had that sort of routine down of after dinner was bath time. And I, think I was never so happy just to do the dishes in silence and just have a little bit of just mental break.
Yeah.
And then bedtime and stuff. And I think that continued to be a fun time with the kids as they got older with you and all the stories you guys read and things like that. That was very special, I think.
And one of the things that we had read, and this is maybe just a little advice, again, worked for us, maybe it will for you, but having that consistent routine, going upstairs for a tub, getting into pajamas, sitting down and reading a book. These are all kind of subconscious signals to your kid that, okay, bedtime's coming, so that when you lay them down in the crib, their body has kind of started to get into sleep mode.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do tend to sleep a little bit easier, a little bit better when you kind of have this routine that kind of gets them ready for it. It transitions them into it.
I really think our second kid, one, because we had a better routine that was more defined, but she just fell right along into that routine at that point.
Yeah.
It was harder to get our first child onto a routine because we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's talk about the other aspect of like a daytime routine. So you stayed home.
Yes, and that was I was happy to stay home. I liked the job I had, but it was, I definitely was excited to be home raising kids. Having said that, I think what I didn't count on was how lonely that can be. At times you're surrounded by, especially at some point, I was surrounded by 4 little people, and, but there's not a lot of adults to talk to unless you've made plans. And especially when our first child was a baby, it was very hot in the summer. We weren't out as much, harder to do things, didn't know the neighbors as well. And then I would say a year later, that whole schedule changed and we were out at the playground and we had moms in the neighborhood. But that first part, there were 2 women that lived near me and we had babies the same age and we'd often be out together in the day. But I was trying to get my kid onto a morning nap, an afternoon nap, and then bedtime. We were trying to get this routine down. Mm-hmm. And I can remember just sometimes hating to go inside. Like I knew they were going to stay out and talk. They had a different routine, and I'd just be like, oh no, like I've got to go put him down. Like I have to leave this adult conversation and go in. And I could see them outside the window and I was like, I want to be with my friends. So I think I was not quite prepared for kind of that loneliness that can come during the daytime. And I was a big napper. I napped in the afternoon pretty regularly. Would still do it if I could. So, there were certainly happy moments to that as well. But I think finding the right routine for your kid that's not going to necessarily jibe with all the other neighborhood kids, it's tough. That's a tough thing. Yeah. But making sure you find those moms groups, exercise groups, whatever it is that you can take the kids to, playgrounds, things like that, just so you can get some socialization, get out of the house with the kids. It's good.
Yeah, for us, I think our parish church was huge for that. I think in most parish churches they'll have like a
mom's
group,
absolutely,
or something like that. It's a great way to plug into people who are at that same stage of life. Okay, a couple other routine things to kind of get routines to establish. The first is, guys, I keep saying this as if mom's staying home. I think that's pretty common, but come home and talk to your wife.
Yes, talk to her.
Like you just mentioned, like being out in the neighborhood with these people, but she's been talking to minors all day. Not just minors, but like incoherent ones. So, come home, tell her about your day, ask her about hers. Have an adult conversation. Don't make the sum total of the time you spend together in the evening just binge watching a show. That's fine if you have a show that you're enjoying to make that part of, but not all of. Right? You got to have some time where you got to get some intellectual stimulation as well. I
also always appreciated hearing either news about people at work, like your friends, or just stories that had happened, interactions, interesting things. Also just the news, like nothing too stressful, but just, hey, did you hear this happened? Or, just maybe those human interest stories are good, But so take a minute, Google something, come home with a nugget, a story, a phone call, something you had with somebody to just talk about for whatever parent is staying home.
And then pray together.
Yep.
I think we've talked about this on maybe some other episodes, but that those few minutes, even if it is just a few minutes, to just really stay focused on the fact that you guys are in a trio in terms of doing this. You and God, and kind of focus on that team aspect.
Well, I think it does. I think especially when sleep is compromised, I find I get very cranky and very short with people, with you. And so it is easy then to see you as the obstacle to getting what I want, or the person that's getting on my last nerve,
Right.
as opposed to we are on the two of us and God are on a team together. And that reunites that focus of like, what do you mean you want to play golf on Saturday? This is not okay with me. And, so trying to balance that aspect of getting along. And I think God just helps to right that ship for us.
Yeah. Last thing that Grace and Chris had suggested, and I think this is a really neat idea. Everybody needs a hobby.
Oh, yeah. That was a good suggestion.
It's a great suggestion. And they were really specific about this, right? That in case there's any doubt about it, like sitting on the couch scrolling through your feed is not a hobby. So it's important that you have something that's going to be creative, and it doesn't have to be, I don't mean that suddenly you need to be an artist, but you need to do something where you feel like I made this, I produced something, I added something to the good of the world.
Our daughter is getting ready to do a missionary year with the Culture Project, and that's one of their instructions as she prepares for the year is she has to have a day of rest. But on that day of rest, she has to recreate. Like she needs to make something, do something, paint, I don't know, grow something, something that's productive in the sense of creating a product.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. Either a hobby or, like golfing, something like that. I mean, I joke about you going golfing for the day, but, that can be a good bonding time with friends, whatever. But something that is your own interest, preferably different from your spouse's interest. Because, again, what else will you be talking about, right? Like kids are going to consume so much of your conversation for the rest of your life. And that's, are they healthy? Do they need something? What's the schedule? How are we doing this? But then what are you talking about as a couple? And so saying, I'm working on writing this poem or creating this crochet thing. I don't do crochet, so I don't know, a blanket. But having some craft that you're working on or a skill that you're mastering is really important.
Yeah, I think a couple important gates or fences around this, especially if you're just trying to choose something, at a time when you're making these other changes, just be careful. Like, a hobby that's going to require you to buy $500 worth of new gear is probably not a good one to start at this time.
Good point.
A hobby that requires you to spend, this is why golf might not be the best, hours and hours away, but maybe 2 nights a week you get to go to the driving range and hit a bucket. That's something. But a 4-hour round of golf is a lot. That's a lot of time to be away.
A family-friendly hobby.
Finding something that's family friendly, and something you can maybe fit into a 15-20 minute time frame, because that is maybe all that you're going to be given for it on a regular basis, and it certainly might not be something you're doing every day. And one of the things we talked about when we were kind of talking about this idea, be careful that it's not just another chore.
Yes.
Now, if you love gardening, that's great. But if you're just going out to garden because you feel like it must be done, so I'm the one who's going to do it, no, that's not a hobby.
Right.
Now, if you're someone who is a foodie and you love cooking, then maybe taking on some of the cooking for the family might be a way to kind of combine a hobby with something that is taking care of people, and so you get a little bit of extra time for your hobby because it's doing something that's feeding everybody. But if you hate cooking and you're burning everything and it's not bringing you joy, okay, that's not for you.
That's not the hobby then. That it might need to be done, but it's not the hobby. Yeah.
So absolutely, Grace, Chris, thanks for all these suggestions. Thanks for the suggestion of this topic. I mean, I think this was a really good one. Do you have any other last thoughts about postpartum issues?
No, I think, and I think we've mentioned this before, but you would always tell me, I would say I don't like the phase that our kids in at the moment, like this, screaming phase, the no phase, whatever. And you're like, don't worry, it's going to change in a couple weeks. And it will change. It's not always better, but it will change. So I think just knowing that something is going to change, or you're going to figure out, how to make this work for your family, it just might not be right. It might not be the perfect fit right off the bat. And that's okay. Yeah. It's part of the process.
Well, if you have any other ideas or topics that you'd like to hear us talk about, send them to terminalvocation@gmail.com. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to talk about them. You've been listening to Terminal Vocation, a VoFam production. I'm Deacon Mark, along with my wife and co-host Erin. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week.